Someone once wrote of a river as rising in the highest mountains of the human soul, flowing through the pleasant sunny vales of memory and emptying into the glorious oceans of unfulfilled dreams. Flowing west and south out of the fertile and tropical land that is Florida and emptying into the Gulf of Mexico is one of America's most famous and picturesque rivers. 100 years and more ago, the legendary Suwannee, like other great rivers of America, was an important water route into a new land. The clear, sweet, spring-fed Suwannee felt the bustle of flourishing trade as the riverboats steamed from plantation to plantation, and for nearly 100 miles upstream, ferried the commerce of the virgin country down to the thriving Gulf port of Cedar Keys. It is here that our Suwannee holiday begins. As we launched our little craft, my family and I eagerly anticipated the fulfillment of a long dreamed-of adventure, cruising the fabled Suwannee River, made famous by the song of Stephen Foster. We were thrilled with the idea of retracing the route of the picturesque old river steamers and living again the romance of the era in our imaginations. The girls had been singing Way Down Upon the Suwannee River for days, and their anticipation had nearly reached the bursting point. They were eager to get started, and for that matter, so were we. Before us were many miles of romantic river travel to reach our projected destination, the Stephen Foster Memorial at White Springs. We had spent many long hours building our little boat, and after several test runs, we were ready to begin the big adventure. We climbed aboard, skipper, mate, and crew. At last waterborne. The mate doubled as chief engineer at this point. A quick touch of the starter button, and we were off and running, with a wave goodbye to our friends who would meet us at the Foster Memorial with our car and trailer. A picturesque vacation town now, Cedar Key was once a center of Florida West Coast shipping. It was here that the shallow draft river craft transshipped their cargo to deep water vessels. Sunshine and fishing are now its big attractions. The waters of Suwannee Sound were smooth and sparkling blue. We were heading due north from Cedar Key, straight for East Pass, the southern branch of the Suwannee, as it flows into the Gulf of Mexico. Here at last, the mouth of the Suwannee, wide and colorful, its waters flowing down to meet the sea. Waters that start in the Okefenokee Swamp, 250 miles upstream, and flow through one of the most romantic river basins in the Western Hemisphere. It is a delightful experience just to cruise on the broad Suwannee, its banks dotted with cypress, magnolia, and sable palms. Exploring as we were, we stopped at the first sign of civilization to ask for directions from a local resident. He was very friendly and gave us the mileage upriver to our first planned stop. On a river as broad and smooth as the Suwannee, there was little navigation required, and we all had plenty of time for sightseeing. Soon we reached our first stop, Manatee Springs State Park, so named because the manatee or sea cow once frequented this spring to feed on the lush vegetation in the water. Flowing at the rate of 50 million gallons of sparkling clear water a day, the spring is excellent for swimming. This is one of two great Florida state parks on the banks of the Suwannee. The state has provided picnic, refreshment, and boat launching facilities for the enjoyment of all. Back on the river, we had company, a close-up view of one of the nation's fastest and fastest-growing sports, water skiing, another Suwannee River attraction for the sportsman. We pointed out to the children that in times past, this area was once dotted with fine old plantations, and that the river was once the connecting link over which they shipped their products to the world. Today, none of the plantations remain. There are a great many natural springs feeding the Suwannee River, and here at Fannin Springs, we decided it was time for a swim. The crystal clear water of this spring along the Suwannee attracts many swimmers, and the looking is just as good as the swimming. The girls were quick to make friends with a boy with a glass-bottom bucket, and through it, they retreated to a panoramic view of wiggling toes and underwater plant life.
Hey, Dad!
I did some underwater sightseeing on my own. We stayed overnight at a clean, modern motel near this spring, and next day we were again speeding along toward new thrills. The river scenery was breathtaking. We passed huge cypress trees and moss-hung oaks, and nestled with them hickory, dogwood, pines, willows, and other trees that have grown undisturbed for centuries. We turned into a natural tunnel through the trees to the run to Bluff Springs. Here, the waterway was lined with age-old cypress trees, some 15 feet in diameter at their base. This phenomenal limestone cavity was carved out by centuries of water flow and is a spectacular thrill to the visitor. One seems to be floating on air while looking down into the depths of the spring basin. The view presents an underwater paradise matchless in color and seemingly bottomless. The unspoiled natural setting of Bluff Spring and the glimpse into its vivid, clear blue depths will long remain in our memories as a colorful highlight of our Suwannee holiday. There seems to be no end to the interesting sights along the Suwannee. Around each bend, there is a new view, a new experience. The comfortable vacation cottages, the unaffected manner in which the people enjoy the blessings of the river. Blessings that are shared by the heron and other graceful wading birds. Florida wildlife abounds along the banks of the Suwannee. One does not travel far on the Suwannee without seeing fishermen pitting their skill against the mighty Suwannee bass. For these waters teem with the fighting king of freshwater fish. Of particular interest to us were the sunken hulls of historic old riverboats. A tree growing out of its skeleton marks all that is left of the Senator David L. Ulee, named after one of Florida's illustrious citizens of the past. Further up the river, we passed over the remains of the steamer City of Hawkinsville, split and time-worn, part of its deck still above water. Silent in the clear shallows at the mouth of Troy Springs is the visible outline of a Confederate gunboat scuttled during the Civil War. As we drew near the Branford Bridge, where U.S. Highway 27 crosses the Suwannee River, we were reminded of the ribbons of steel and concrete that replaced the romantic old Suwannee River steamers. With modern highways, the riverboats are gone. Never again a crowded anchorage, shouting deckhands, or crying whistles. The era of river transportation has passed on the Suwannee. We stopped here at one of Florida's pleasant roadside parks and walked into Branford, an old river port still bustling in a modern way as a trading center for the surrounding agricultural area. We took this opportunity to replenish our supplies and had an enjoyable lunch in the park. At this point, we had come more than 80 miles up the Suwannee. Each new bend in the river revealed a breathtaking panorama of primitive beauty. Soon the character of the river changed. Sandy banks gave way to hard limestone bluffs and narrow serpentine turns. We made another picnic stop at Suwannee River State Park, located at Ellaville, where U.S. Highway 90 crosses the river. One of our newer state parks with complete facilities, here is an 1,800-acre recreational area, offering an atmosphere of incomparable beauty. The children had a glorious time playing on the earthen ramparts of old Fort Columbia, which is preserved as a portion of Suwannee River State Park. The fort was part of the South's defenses commanding the vital junction of the Suwannee and Withlacoochee rivers, which come together at this point. We spent a delightful afternoon in this historic spot. And of course, as most tourists do, we paused to take pictures in the lovely setting. The call of the river was strong. We were nearing White Springs and our destination, the Stephen Foster Memorial. It didn't take long to repack, and we were off again. We had come 185 miles upstream from our starting point. We had seen the Suwannee change from a broad, deep, serene river with sandy shorelines to a narrow, twisting current with high, rocky banks. We had experienced the thrill of cruising the Suwannee, and we were very happy. The Stephen Foster Memorial, a memorial to the man who wrote a song that immortalized a river he had never seen. This magnificent edifice was built by the people of the state of Florida to honor the composer of their state song, built at a cost of $500,000. Surrounded by 243 acres of woodland park, this building contains a priceless collection of Foster memorabilia. Here are paintings of Foster by Howard Chandler Christie, pianos of his time, some of his original manuscripts, and numerous other antebellum exhibits. Foster, who died in New York, homeless and nearly penniless, has here a remarkable living memorial saluting his talents. The children were particularly impressed by a magnificent collection of miniature scenes called dioramas, portraying the songs of Foster.
The corn cobs ripe and the meadows in the bloom for the old Kentucky home, far away down upon the Suwannee River.
Of course, after visiting the memorial, the girls just had to have a ride on the miniature riverboat, Belle of the Suwannee, a scaled-down replica of the original stern wheeler that once ran excursions on the river. Today, this trim little craft takes visitors on a scenic trip up and down the Suwannee, just as in times past. Our cruise on the Suwannee had been a rich and rewarding one. The whole family had enjoyed it. The sights we had seen and the things we had done left a vivid memory of a legendary river. Our Suwannee holiday will go down in our family album as one long remembered, a dream fulfilled.
Way down upon the Suwannee River,